So in the car again, and this time only a local trip off to seaside town on the Wirral called New Brighton. This trip's actually inspired by my daughter doing her homework yesterday. She was doing some work on coastal erosion and coastal defences, and New Brighton has some quite geometrical looking coastal defences, so I thought I might go down, and it'll be a little bit different from my kind of normal landscape shot, because obviously normally I'm looking at trees and lakes and mountains and things, but this time around I'm going to be looking at something man-made, and it is quite structural, it's quite eye-catching, but I'm hoping that the tide is high, and I don't know if you can pick it up, the light is kind of flat, there's quite a good covering of clouds, so I'm going to try and take some images with the longest shutter speed possible. I'm already thinking I'll convert them to black and white, and hopefully some waves lapping round kind of the geometric man-made structure, and I like that kind of contrast between the man-made shapes and angles and then the natural sea. So keep your fingers crossed. And you can probably see, got a couple of passengers in the back this time. Una and Oslo. Oslo's the dog, Una's my wife. I'm also trying a new audio system. I bought a really cheap voice recorder, so hopefully you're getting better audio. I've got a microphone on and a tiny little recorder. It's only kind of 10 quid or something. But let's keep fingers crossed and hope it works. And next clip will probably be a bit of montage of us speeding our way to New Brighton. Arrived down at New Brighton. Hopefully this new microphone is working, and you can hear me. Otherwise, if I'm relying on the GoPro microphone, you'll probably just be able to hear waves crashing in the background, which is quite nice, but hopefully you can hear my voice. So, believe it or not, I talked about the sea defences. They're under the water at the moment, so it's high tide about 10-15 minutes ago. And I'm just waiting for the tide to recede a bit. Una's taken Oslo for a walk, and as the tide recedes, my intention is to head down there, so on the end of those rocks, and the sea defences head out in that direction. But getting here a little bit early has given me an opportunity to set up the camera and to look at practicing some exposures, so it gives me a chance to get my camera settings right before I head down there. And rather than fiddle down around there when the waves are possibly crashing over my wellies, do it up here. So if we take a look, and I'll share this with you. So I've got a polarizing filter on the end just to take out some of the glare of the water. I've got my darkest neutral density filter on, which allows me to drop the shutter speed down as probably, I'll show you in a second, but it's probably just over a second will be enough to get the movement and the waves. But you can see, hopefully you can see this. At the moment I'm on f16, ISO 100. It's given me 1.5 seconds, always manual, shooting raw. Bring that back up, shooting raw. And I've gone on also white balance. Normally in conditions like this I'd come and choose a different white balance, depending on sunny or clouds. But I took a couple of test shots, and here's the benefit of doing the test shots. Took a couple with cloudy, because there's a good covering of cloud, and it looked very, very blue. So I've gone for auto white balance, and it looks more natural. I'm going to convert them to black and white anyway, but I just want to get it right. So the camera's set up, ready to go. What I'm hoping to do is, when I get down there, I'll move around a bit. The sea defences run out directly towards the horizon. So what I'm hoping to do, so as the sea defences are opened up, I'll stick them right in the middle of the frame, take some relatively long shutter speed images, and there'll be a lovely contrast between the sea defences and the sea. But at the moment I just got to wait here and wait for the tide to go out. But you can see, got to go down these steps. The beach is already getting uncovered, and even in the short time I've been here, tide's moved down. So let's see how that goes. I'm finally down at the water's edge. Had to wait about 20 minutes for the tide to go out. So I was up at the top of those steps earlier when I was talking to you, so I'm down on the water's edge, and hopefully you can see the top of the sea defences are starting to poke through. So I'm not in the position I want to be at the moment, because I want to be photographing those directly, but there's still probably a little bit too much water for my wellies. But in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll be out there photographing those, and I'm quite confident, famous last words, that it's going to work well. You probably can't see it on the camera, but there's a bunch of turnstones on top of those objects at the moment. Always a good place to come and watch waders down here. But another 10 minutes or so, and I'll be down there. So look forward to speaking to you then. So you can see I'm right down on the rocks, a bit precarious. Rocks are very slippy, so if you do come to a place like this, please be careful. Wouldn't want anybody slipping over and hurting themselves. But I think you can see the angle now, so I'll continue talking, hopefully this records well. You can see the angle I'm going for. Thankfully there's a ship out, and that made for a nice few shots, and you can see those turnstones flapping about. But the angle I'm going for is kind of this. I don't know if it'll work as well on the GoPro, but shooting right along these parallel lines out towards the horizon. Very minimalist, because clearly there's not much to see in the distance, and what I'm aiming for is kind of people to, in the image, look, and their eyes will lead up into the distance, but they're actually focusing on all the different kind of geometrical shapes. I'm going to wait a bit longer because I want the waves moving around, and now the waves currently are a bit behind me, so a little bit of a challenge. But you know, in a few minutes, hopefully the waves will be swirling around these nice geometrical shapes, and it make a nice contrast. But I wanted to show that angle, so hopefully you can see what I'm trying to achieve, and the images will come out nicely. And believe it or not, there's a little egret down there. You won't be able to see it, but there's a little egret on top of one of these kind of groins, I think they're called. So quite a lot of little egrets around here, but yeah, I'm going to try and photograph those in another video, so keep tuning in. Cheers. Back again. Just had a thought. You know, I went through the camera setup earlier, but one of the things I didn't mention is where I'm focusing. So, image like this, I always manual focus, but if you're looking at an image like this, there's a lot of interest right along the frame. So when the images come out, hopefully there's interest. So depth of field is quite an important issue to think about. So I'm focusing maybe 6 or 7 of these along, so it's hard to say, but kind of maybe a third of the way along. So that then gives me quite a range of depth of focus. I'm on f16, so that gives me a bigger depth of focus anyway, but about a third of the way along. So you get more focus front and back. If I was focusing right at the very front, which I might try later, you'd clearly only have sharpness at the very front of the image, which might be a nice effect, but for this purposes, I'm focus point about a third of the way along, and then that gives me a broader depth of field. So hopefully when the images come out, it's a pleasing sharpness across as much of the range as possible. So just a tip when you're looking at things like this, it's important to try and get the focus right. I'm going to try some with these. So these are kind of more natural shapes. I'm going to try some with these as well. I might try with a focus point very close to me, so it shows you hopefully the effect of the difference focusing. Now what I'll do is I'll try and put the images side by side in the video. So that little egret's coming closer. It's a pity I've not got my long lens on that. The light's not good enough, but it's quite confiding. So I wish you could see it, because it's an elegant bird. But anyway, that was a few tips on focusing, and I'll get back to the job. So last bit of footage from me, I think. Tide has now gone out quite a distance, and there's not as much water around these as possible. You can now see the kind of the architectural structure of them. I've taken some landscape versions, I've taken some portrait versions, and I'll process them. I always thought when I would come that I'd convert these to black and white, because there's really no colour to speak of, so they'll do much better in black and white, and I'll put the contrast in, so hopefully at the end of this video you'll see some nice black and white shots. Hopefully you've learned something about the camera settings I've used and about focusing. If you've enjoyed the video, please do click thumbs up. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your comments. I've had a few comments, and it's always great to kind of build up a bit of interaction. Don't forget to subscribe. There's more videos. If this is the first one you've seen, please go back and have a look at the previous ones, and there'll be more videos coming up, landscape and nature. So hope you've enjoyed it, and see you in the next video. Cheers.